On my YouTube channel, I've done a few videos on head wraps over the years. Some of them serious, some of them more fun and playful. But one of the most common questions I get asked here in my home state of Texas is, where are you from? Because when people see my head wraps, when they see me, they don't associate it with being American. But it is, right?
It reminds me that I can be Black and I don't have to apologize for it, and I don't have to apologize that it's beautiful too.
African American head wraps is unique in its own. It has a specific historical significance. Now go back to the history of slavery. It was a uniform of slavery, right, for women to cover their hair, and there were specific laws, sumptuary laws that were made for African American women to always cover up their heads to symbolize their social status and their differences from the white women they were working with. But along the line, you find that after it endured slavery, went through emancipation, all the periods of Jim Crow, the civil rights era, up till contemporary period, it has gone through all these periods, historical periods, and acquired a different layer of meaning, right? There was a time it was something that symbolized servitude, your lower status, your inferior status, but now it's no longer that. It has survived through different historical periods.
We know how beautiful we are automatically, and we begin to wrap it up and be just as beautiful, wrapping it in different styles that still made us feel beautiful, still made us feel pretty, and it was kind of like a resistance type of a thing. Oh, you want me to cover my hair? Okay, I'm still gonna be beautiful. I'm gonna cover it up with this gorgeous fabric and do what you said, massa.
It's just something culture that you pass on your family. Like, you know, even within my household, my grandmother and my great-grandmother, they wore turbans, and they always had colorful scarves that they used to wrap their hair, and it was worn as like high fashion. Like my grandmother would wear head wraps with her furs, and I always just loved the image of Black women in head wraps. Inherently, I do believe everything is political, and so the head wrap is definitely political, and I wear that kind of political marker with pride.
Do you think everyone else realizes how political it is?
No, I think people are trendy. I like that this is becoming like an entrepreneurial lane for Black women to really create flourishing Black businesses out of the head wrap industry. So no, I'm not bothered that there are people who wear head wraps simply for the look or the style. I don't think everything that everyone does has to be deep, right? You know, like, how often do we want to always have this conversation about the head wrap being political? You know, I don't need to go up to everyone and be like, do you know the political history of your head wrap? Like, nah, girl, I like the fabric. Where you get it from? It's cute.
When you wear a scarf, what do you want people to think?
I want people to know that I am confident, that I would like to think I'm like classic, that I have that I'm cultured, that I'm aware, that I have a sense of self-awareness, and that I just exude something that cannot be defined.
It's not a far reach to think of cowboy hats when you think of Texas. But why? Why is it when I say I'm from Texas, people don't believe that? I keep focusing on this aspect of covering one's head for culture. Maybe your culture is around your favorite team, or maybe your culture is based on geography. I've said many times that I wear my head wraps mostly to protect my hair from the elements. After all, locks are a very long-term style. But who owns a style? Can anyone own it? So when I think of a Texan, even though I'm from here, even though I am one, I don't think of myself.
That's what I love about being a historian, is you never know where that little morsel of new, because I think at times, and I think this may be one of those instances, is we get stuck on a story, especially with something as iconic as the cowboy hat. You're thinking, well, what am I going to find out new about the cowboy hat?
This is Gregory Garrett. He's a historian with the Institute of Texan Cultures, a Smithsonian-affiliated museum. I went to him to learn more about the cowboy hat and its history.
A lot of the scholarship out there talks about the wide-brimmed, flat riding hat was introduced by the Mongol hordes as they were invading into Europe during the 12 and 1300s. horses have been domesticated much longer than just the Mongols and the Mongolian Empire. So I started wondering, well, let's take it back to the domestication of the horse for cavalry purposes. And you can go back as far as the Greek cavalry with Alexander the Great. We're getting back to 900 to 600 to 300 BCC. Now, you begin to see different styles of creases, even in sombreros and things like that. And this is a classical felt sombrero right here that would have been worn by a vaquero. And as I said, the vaqueros, those were our first cowboys.
As I watched Mr. Garrett explain to me a complex history of a single utilitarian device across the multiple millennia and cultures, and how it has been warped and changed to fit the needs of social structures of each society it entered, whether it be for fashion or function, I couldn't help but wonder, can anyone truly own anything in regards to culture? And then he explained to me why we associate the cowboy hat specifically with Texas, even though the hat's origins are so vast.
And there was a family of hat makers in Colorado in the 1850s, the last name Stetson. This family, in my opinion, is where utilitarianism meets pop culture and fashion. And he took his skills that he had learned from his father, headed back to Philadelphia, opened up his own hat shop, created a hat called the Boss of the Plains, and from there, it began.
So this iconic headpiece that, at least across the United States anyway, we kind of unilaterally associate with Texas isn't even Texan. If you go back a century or two, it's Coloradian and Philadelphian, thanks Stetson. But then we have to acknowledge the Spanish influence on Texas, which of course used to be Mexico, so I guess you could say it's Spanish. But then we have to acknowledge that the Mongols had an influence on a lot of Europe, so it's Mongol. But then we can't forget about the Greeks. So can you really say that anyone's the OG? So keeping this in mind, I went back to Abimbola, and for all my people of color and marginalized groups out there, she speaks a harsh truth that, I don't know, I think we can still have some discourse about in the comments, to be honest.
So those that make argument about appropriation do have a point about sometimes when something sacred to you is profaned through usage or commercialization or overuse, right? And they degrade the things that you hold there. There's some aspects of that that are very important, but there are some things that you cannot do anything about. If women of other races start to want to cover their hair, you can't do anything about it. There are so many things that we do today that are appropriated from certain cultures. Or they think, what has the history got to do with me? I just see something I like, I want to use it to express myself. And there is really nothing much you can do about it. Culture is meant to be lived, not to be possessed. Right? You can't privatize culture. You can only live it.
I mean, hearing that makes me just want to see where the cowboy hat is in 500 years. Is it even still associated with Texas, or is it I don't know, associated with the Great Plains of Mars or something? But on a more serious note, I guess if there's anything I can take away from this experience of digging deeper into my own identity as a Black Texan, I guess my only takeaway is Google it. If someone approaches you saying, hey, you're appropriating my culture, or just so you know, there's a little bit of a lack of awareness in what you're doing, all right, take 2 minutes. We all have a supercomputer in our pocket now, so there's really no excuse. And educate yourself. And if what you find gives you pause about your own actions, then adjust accordingly and move on with your life. Because we've all been there. At some point, we've all been problematic. And so in that same vein, in the comments below, let me know a time that you've been problematic and someone educated you. Thank you, Creators for Change, for giving me the opportunity to make this video. I'll see you when I see you.